These were the elections which were never supposed to happen, but suck it up, they are. The European parliamentary elections are imminent. Now, I want to talk to Laura Parker. She's one of the kind of Labour star candidates in London. Now, full disclosure, I think you all know probably by now that I support Labour and quite like them to win things. Brexit is a bit of a mess. Lots of people are quite annoyed with Labour from both directions. And I myself have worries, fears about another referendum. And I think Laura's more keen on one. So I want to talk to her about that. Isn't a referendum just going to make things worse? What's she going to do about the fact lots of people are angry with Labour, and can we bring this country together or not? Laura, I'm really bored of Brexit.
Look, I wish you were original, but I've just been...
I often get that. So
I've just been door knocking, and you're not the only one.
Are you not bored with Brexit?
No, I'm not, but I can recognise that lots of people are. We're spending all our time talking about market mechanisms. Actually, what I want to talk about is people and solidarity and my Italian husband and workers' rights and having an Uber strike from Barcelona to Berlin to Bolton. And the thing is, Brexit has just stripped all of the politics out of it. But actually, our relationship with the EU, in it or out of the bureaucratic stuff, it's actually really important. And I think it's deliberate that we're now being bored to death, because the Tories know, spin it out, spin it out, spin it out, chuck all these amendments in, you know, stuff that none of us understand, and then sneak a crappy deal through at the last minute. It's designed to be bored, which is why we can't be bored. We've got to wake up again.
Labour's Brexit position, I think, is bad.
Why do you think it's bad?
So I think it's bad because it's triangulating on a big issue, and the whole point of the Corbyn insurgency is to be very clear positions, take on the elite. The problem with me saying that is I genuinely have no alternative to it, therefore I don't think they have a choice.
I don't think there's a good way out of this. The problem is, here is where we are. You've kind of got to pick a side.
I think the problem is, see what you think about this, is that what's happened since the referendum, I don't think there's been a massive change of opinion on either side. I know the polls will say Remain now has a lead, but what mostly has happened is a big chunk of Remain voters have got angrier, understandably, about the whole situation, and a big group of Leave voters are now, or the majority, now want no deal, which is not the position that existed before. And when you've got that kind of polarisation on both sides, I genuinely don't understand how you get a resolution that tries to bring the country together. So we can start talking about, do you remember like the NHS and child poverty and that?
I know, but these things are, look, again, I agree. I mean, there isn't, you know, the people who just say, let's just have a people's vote, it will all resolve in a kind of blasé way, that's just not true. The people who think that we can just go and magic up our deal, that's not that true either. We've got 27 EU member states getting more and more fed up with us. So the prospects of us getting a better deal are also diminishing. So, you know, I don't think there's an easy way out. I do think that we're all a lot wiser than we were. I get really irritated when I'm then told by someone who has voted Leave or is defending the Leave voters, you're just saying that Leavers are stupid. No, the entire country, whether they voted or not, and whether they voted Leave or Remain, pretty much everyone in Britain now has a better idea. But how else do we, I mean, if Parliament was just to revoke Article 50, which some people want, I think that would be even less acceptable to the people who had voted Leave.
A lot of people want that though. It's up to about 36% now, just think, revoke it, gone. And a lot of them vote Labour, or did.
Yeah, it's true, and I'm meeting lots of them on the doorstep, and they're frustrated. Look, the entire political class is taking a battering.
But you want to stop Brexit, really, don't you?
I never wanted to start it. I would like us to have a healthy process by which we can agree that we should stay in the EU.
That's a referendum though, isn't it?
Well, unless you can think of a better way. But it is a second part of one question. I don't want to just put the same question back.
No, but I mean...
Well, that's why, for example, I wasn't a people's voter on the 24th of June. I was a really upset person who'd voted Remain, who argued with my Italian husband about the need to trigger Article 50. So it's not just that I want another referendum in the way that some of the people wanted it from day one, like genuinely.
No, you see it as, I can see you basically, I mean, you would like to Brexit not to happen, and obviously the only way realistically is another referendum. I suppose my fear with that is, because if I could press a big red button to make this whole thing just go away, I would press that button, but it doesn't exist. So a referendum, when I say to people it would make things, it would be infinitely more bitter and vicious than the last campaign, which I'm absolutely convinced it would be, they say, oh, aren't things bitter and vicious, that things are already really vicious and bitter, which I think is a lack of imagination, because I think it would be on speed how bad it would be. It would be Nigel Farage, he's already having the time of his life in the European parliamentary elections, wait for a referendum, and I think there's every chance Leave would win again on a platform of Tell Them Again, and I've been told by some prominent Remainers, well, we'd just be in the same position as we are now. No, we wouldn't. It would be so much worse.
Okay, but there's a few things about that. I mean, I don't completely disagree with you, but since when did we say, when we want to make a strong argument to decent people, because the vast majority of people in this country are decent and they're not actually Nigel Farage, oh, it's going to upset a rump of really shitty people, so we better not say it. Like, we'd never have had progress on anything if we'd taken that approach.
I didn't mean that so much as...
No, but that's kind of what it's sounding like. It's like we don't trust Britain to basically be decent. Like, I believe most people in this country are decent now. They've got to be given a different campaign. If we have the same shower we had last time, for a start, we've got to have, the odd woman has got to appear in the room. If there is another, if there's a confirmatory vote, whatever we're going to call this thing, it's got to be completely, completely different. The campaign pace has got to be in Redcar. There's got to have some women, some young people, some working class voices, some BAME voices. We've never explained the value of the EU to the vast majority of people in this country. You walk around Britain, you've got no idea. Like, I used to live in Liverpool quite a long time ago when it was an Objective 1 city, which under the structural funds meant that they invested in areas which had a GDP per person of 75% or less than the EU average. There are whole chunks of that city which have been transformed through EU funding. Like, who was ever taught? And then, like you say, we have a discussion about our EU membership and it's all about the customs union, the single market and state aid. It's just a fantasy. And then people, like, we've given away, and it pains me, and I guess it might do you, but it pains me that these things that I passionately believe in, that all the people who wanted Corbyn to be the leader of our party believe in, about the rights of individuals and migrants' rights, and yes, freedom of movement, we've given away that whole discussion.
But on that, I mean, isn't that arguably quite a big betrayal by Labour? I mean, Jeremy Corbyn and Dan Abbott were lifelong campaigners for the rights of migrants and refugees when it was very unpopular. The first thing, as you know, you were working for him at the time, when Corbyn became leader of the Labour Party, was to appeal at a refugees rally, for which there was much finger wagging by the commentariat, the same people now attacking him over Brexit the other way, but they have stopped making the case for the rights of migrants. I mean, that has just vanished from public discourse, and shouldn't they get a bit of criticism for that, do you think?
I wish there was another answer to that, but yes, we should. Now, for my own part, I wander around with a little badge on saying I'm not a bargaining chip, in solidarity with my nice Italian husband, and I'm getting really tired of having arguments with people on the left who think that because my nice Italian husband is in fact Italian, rather than perhaps, a Windrush family, somehow it doesn't count. There's a really slippery slope that the left is rolling down when we're failing to defend the rights of people. Now, for me, it doesn't matter if you're Lithuanian, Italian, Nigerian, Pakistani or Indian. Somehow we've got a bit of a blind spot on Europe, and we've given away the discussion about EU citizens' rights, and it is part of this wider problem. We're just not making the case. And I think we're kind of sliding into this really quite worrying leftist version of English nationalism. That's not who we are.
There's a big problem with the EU from a left-wing perspective. It enshrines that sexy word neoliberalism, things like privatisation, restricting state aid. These are just facts. I mean, what do you say about that? What would you say about, if you're standing in the European elections, how would we fight to change that if we stayed in?
I would say, let's grapple with the discussion about the state aid rules. They were created in the first place. We can change them. It can't be beyond us. We can't be thinking that we can transform this country. And we're so bold and courageous about what we want to do with the Corbyn-led government in the UK, and somehow our courage just falls off a cliff at Dover. When Jeremy first won, he went across Parliament Square and talked about migrants' rights. If that same Jeremy Corbyn had then become the Prime Minister, he'd have been sitting around a table with Angela Merkel. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I genuinely believe that with her position and Jeremy's position, we could have transformed the European Union's approach to the migrant crisis. Surely, democratic decision-making and participating, however imperfect the system is, surely that's got to be up there. I mean, all you Benites, the T-shirt with a little bit about, I can't now remember the quote. You'll remember the quote.
What, Tony Benn and where power comes from,
exactly.
and how do you hold them to account?
How do you hold them to account?
Yeah.
How do you hold them to account if it's a fax machine? you know, it's that is just not good enough. Why would we give away what we've got now? Now, I'm not saying that what we've got now is perfect. Far from it. You know, I know enough about how the EU works to know that there's a huge amount of things that need changing. I mean, the Eurozone, obviously, which we're not in, probably thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
But lots of it locks in there, as you said before. You know, it is a very neoliberal kind of structural adjustment economics view of the world. That's got to change. But how are we going to tackle climate change on our own?
Labour not doing well in certain polls. In one poll, they're down to 16%. Brexit Party way ahead. Why is Labour doing so badly? What can they do to change it? Because time is running out. And Farage wins. Bad news, that, isn't it?
Farage winning would be our worst legacy if we leave the EU. And wherever your view is about Brexit, because these elections, of course, in a way, they're about Brexit, but they're actually about who we send to the European Parliament for however long we send them there. Let's assume we leave. Our legacy is going to be that our Italian, French, Spanish comrades have got more of Farage and co sitting, you know, because it will be the biggest shot in the arm to the right across the continent. So the first thing we've got to do is mobilise. We've got to mobilise.
What do you say? A lot of people are sitting at home thinking, I'm just not going to come and vote.
Since when was this a party that didn't want to win elections?
The other parties have a pithy message. Vote Green or Lib Dem, stop Brexit. Vote for the Brexit Party, no deal. What's your pithy pitch?
Vote Labour, unite the country, stop the fascists.
Laura, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes! I think that's interesting. I mean, you know, I still have my fears and worries. I genuinely don't know what the answer to Labour's dilemma is. And I think it's going to be tricky for Labour. It's going to be low turnout, and it's not exactly the sort of elections Labour do well in normally anyway. But there is that danger she talks about, which is the fact that as things stand, Nigel Farage and his Brexit party are going to win this election. It is within our power to stop, of course, but it is something which is going to have a massive impact on our politics. But look, I want to hear your thoughts. How are you going to vote? I can imagine some of you annoyed with Labour, probably from both directions, actually. I want to see, is there anything Labour could do to win you over? How does Labour bridge that gap, given it's so polarised now? It's got more polarised in the last 3 years, because I don't really have those answers, I'm afraid. So let's see if you do. We've got loads of interviews to come. We will be talking to the other side, I'll just leave it at that, in this referendum campaign. But I want to hear your ideas, as ever, for who we should talk to. We've got loads of videos coming, but as ever, subscribe. I'll see you next time.